Over $90,000, and that was the first thing that hit my mind before anything else, because that is what I was looking at, not just a car, not just damage, but something I had just bought in 2026, something I had worked for, and now the side panel was crushed in deep, not a scratch, not something small, something that should not exist, and I looked at it again, trying to process how something like this happens without sound, without anyone saying anything, and I stepped closer without thinking, eyes locked on the damage, and the more I looked, the worse it got, because the angle was too clean, too direct, like it was not random, like something lined up and hit it exactly where it needed to, and right there. If you think this is just a normal accident, you need to subscribe now, because what comes next proves this was never random, and I did not look at the whole car anymore, just that one spot, because that is where the truth was, and it did not feel like an accident, it felt placed, and I turned. Slightly scanning everything around me, expecting something, anything, a reaction, a note, someone watching, but nothing moved, no one stepped forward, no one even looked, and that silence felt heavier than the damage itself, because accidents make noise, but this did not, and that is when it hit me. This was not just damage, this was something already known, just not by me. I stayed where I was for a second longer, not moving, because something about this felt bigger than just damage, and my name is Ryan Cole, and I do not rush when things stop making sense, and right now nothing about this made sense. And that is when I noticed her standing a few steps away, not too close, not too far, just watching, like she had been there before I even looked properly, and her presence did not feel random, it felt placed, calm posture, steady eyes, like she already knew what I was trying to figure out, and that is when everything shifted, because now this was not just me and the car, this was someone else already inside the moment. And I turned slightly, changing my angle, not looking directly at her, just enough to keep her in view, because people like that do not stand there without reason. And I stepped around the car, slowly, not searching for damage anymore, but reading the space around it. And that is when it hit. This was not about impact, this was about positioning. Something had come in too close, stayed steady, and then made contact, and that kind of movement does not happen by mistake, and I could feel it clearly now. This was controlled, and the fact that she was already here before I spoke meant one thing: she knew more than she was saying. I did not say anything at first, I just kept her in my view, because something about her presence did not feel accidental, and the longer I stayed silent, the more it felt like she was waiting for something from me. And then she spoke, calm, controlled, like this moment was already decided. You should not leave your car like this, and that line hit wrong instantly, not because of what she said, but how she said it, like she already knew what happened before I even looked at it, and I turned fully, now facing her, properly trying to read something, anything, but her expression did not change, not surprised, not concerned, just steady, like she had nothing to figure out. And that is when I asked the only thing that mattered, what happened here, and she did not answer right away. And that pause said more than anything else, because people who do not know respond quickly, but people who know choose their words. And when she finally spoke, it was too clean, too simple, it was reported already. And that is when everything shifted, because reported means seen, and seen means someone was here before me, and I could feel it clearly now. This was not something I just discovered, this was something they already handled before I arrived. Reported already, and that line stayed in my head, because it did not sound like information, it sounded like a decision, and I looked straight at her, Dana Cross. And this time I was not trying to understand the damage, I was trying to understand her, because the way Dana said it was too clean, too certain, like this was not something new for her, and I asked who reported it, and Dana answered instantly, maintenance team. And that answer felt prepared, not real, because nothing about this matched the timing, and I stepped closer just enough to hold her attention, because now this was not about my car, this was about the story she was giving me, and I asked again. When in this time Dana did not answer immediately, and that small delay changed everything, because hesitation does not come from truth, it comes from adjustment. And then she said, earlier this morning, and that is when it hit, because that meant someone saw this before I did, and chose not to say anything, and I could feel it clearly now. Dana was not telling me what happened, she was telling me what they decided happened, and that difference changes everything, because one is truth, and the other is control. I held my position for a second, and then I said, show me the report, because by now this was not about asking questions. This was about seeing what they already wrote, and Dana Cross looked at me for a moment like she was deciding something. And then she reached for it without saying anything, and that alone told me everything. Because if this was simple, she would have explained it, not handed it over. And the moment I took it, I knew something was wrong, not later, not after reading the whole thing instantly, because the details were too exact, not general, not estimated, exact location, exact angle, exact time, like whoever wrote this was not guessing, they were there. And I kept reading slower this time, because now every word mattered, and the more I read, the worse it got. Because this was not written after the damage, this was written like the damage was already known while it was happening, and I looked up at Dana again, not confused, not asking, just holding that moment, because now this was not a report, this was a record of something they witnessed and controlled, and that is when it hit me harder. This was not just about my car, this was about who was there before me, and why they made sure everything was already documented before I even saw it. I closed the report slowly, because by now reading more was not giving answers, it was raising better questions, and I looked straight at Dana Cross, because this was no longer about what was written, this was about who wrote it. and why, and I said it clearly, this is too detailed, and that line landed differently, because now I was not asking, I was calling it out. And Dana did not respond immediately, not with words, just a slight shift in focus, like she was recalculating something. And that was enough, because people only adjust when something is exposed, and I took one step closer, holding the report in my hand, because now this was not just paper, this was leverage. And I said it again, slower. This was not written after, this was written by someone who was here, and that changed everything, because now the question was not what happened, the question was who was standing here watching it happen. And why did they not stop it? And I could feel the pressure building, because silence like this does not hold for long in the moment. Stretched just enough to feel unstable, and that is when I knew this was no longer under their control. I stepped forward and put the report right in front of Dana Cross, and I did not slow down, not even for a second, because this was not a discussion anymore, this was exposure. And I said it clearly, this is not normal, this is written like someone watched it happen, so who was here? And Dana tried to respond, but I cut it immediately. No, do not give me procedure answers, tell me who was standing here when my car got hit. And she said we handle incidents internally, and I pushed again, louder, that is not what I asked who saw it happen and why was nothing done. And she tried to hold that same controlled tone, but it was breaking now, and I kept going. Because once you start pushing, you do not stop, not here, not now. You already knew before I got here, you had this ready before I even saw the damage, so explain that. And she said we documented the situation, and I said documented or planned, because this does not look like a report, this looks like something prepared. And now she had to respond faster, because I was not giving space, and I kept pressing every word sharper. Someone hit my car, someone from your side saw it happen, and instead of stopping it, you wrote this first, so who was it, and why was it allowed? I did not slow down, I kept pushing, because now this was not about getting answers, this was about forcing the truth out. And I said it directly, someone from your side did this and you're covering it. And Dana tried to interrupt, but I did not let her finish. No, do not twist this, you had the report ready before I even got here, you knew the angle, you knew the damage, you knew everything, so do not tell me this was just documented. And she said you're making assumptions, and I pushed harder, this is not an assumption, this is evidence. And I held the report up right in front of her, this is written by someone who was here, not after. But during, so either they watched it happen or they did it, and you're protecting them. And now her tone changed, trying to regain control, but it was already slipping. We followed procedure, and I stepped even closer, cutting that off completely. Your procedure does not explain why no one stopped it. Your procedure does not explain why I was not told. Your procedure does not explain why this was ready before I arrived, and I did not stop, not even for a second, because once this breaks, you keep going until it is done. So tell me right now who was here, and why are you hiding them? I did not stop, not even for a second, because by now everything was clear, and I said it straight, Dana Cross, this is not your report, this is your cover. And that line hit different, because now I was not accusing, I was exposing. And she tried to respond, but I cut it immediately. No, do not deny it, you were here, or someone under you was here. And this was written while it happened, not after. And I stepped closer, locking everything on her, because now this was not about the car, this was about her. And I said it again, sharper, you knew exactly where the impact was, you knew the angle, you knew everything before I even saw it, and that only happens when you're part of it. And she said you're wrong, but I pushed harder, this is not wrong, this is written proof. And I held the report up right in front of her, this does not read like observation, this reads like involvement. And now her control was gone, because she could not answer fast enough, and I did not slow down. Dana, this was not handled, this was hidden, and you are the one who made sure of it. And that is when it broke completely, because now this was not about finding the truth, this was about proving she was already in it. I did not step back, I stepped forward, because this was not the kind of situation you walk away from, this was the kind you finish. And I said it clearly, Dana Cross, this is over for you, not the situation you, and that line hit harder, because now this was not pressure, this was consequence. And she tried to speak about internal handling again, but I shut it down instantly. No, you do not get to hide behind that anymore, because this was never internal, this was controlled. And I held the report up right in front of her, not as proof, but as a weapon, because that is what it had become. Your mistake was thinking this stays here, your mistake was writing everything before I even asked. And now it belongs to me, not you. And I could see it clearly, the control gone, the confidence breaking. Because once something like this gets out, it does not come back. And I kept going sharper, stronger, because this was the moment that decides everything. You damaged my car, you controlled the story, and now I control what happens next, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. And I said it one last time, slow and clear, this is not your report anymore, this is what ends you.
I can't do this.